Once the watercolor sky has dried, then we can work on drawing our landscape. You can use this example page for ideas, but you don't have to follow it exactly. Use your own ideas and put creative but realistic things in your landscape. The first thing we're going to do is outline the line around where the paint is. So this is the mountain line that we originally drew before we painted. And I'm closely outlining where the paint stops. Notice how my outline is a little bit bumpy. That will give your landscape a more realistic look because the mountains would have a texture to them. They wouldn't really be a perfectly straight line. So I'm bringing my Sharpie right to the edge of where the watercolor stops. The next thing is drawing what is in our landscape. You should be drawing with a pencil first and then outline with a Sharpie. Make sure that you really like what you have drawn in your landscape before you outline it because our outlines in Sharpie are permanent. I've already done a light sketch here of what I want in pencil, so I'm going to use my Sharpie to outline because it shows up best on camera. First, we're going to work on creating the shadows on the mountains. So look at the tops of your mountains and we're going to work on the left side and draw a irregular, so that's not a perfect, zigzag to the bottom of the mountain. So from the top of the mountain down to the bottom. So for this one, about right here, remember it's an irregular zigzag, so it's not a perfect shape, just kind of a rough sketch of a zigzag like that. Next, I'm going to use the thin Sharpie and I'm going to fill those irregular zigzag shapes that are the shadows on our mountain with diagonal lines. Notice that my lines are not filling up the entire shape, but they are spaced very close together. This would be spaced too far apart. I should add a few more lines in between to really show that this is a darker area of the mountain. If you don't put enough lines, it's not going to create enough value, so it won't look like a shadow. And I'm keeping the direction of these lines the same in each shadow. So I'm going at a diagonal that angles a little bit to the right. Next, I'm going to draw a horizon line where the land becomes mountains. So across my paper, a little bit below the mountains, I'm going to draw a straight-ish line. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect because remember, this is a landscape. Now let's talk about how to show perspective or depth in our landscape. So we want to create an illusion of space here so that our landscape looks like this area is further back in the background and up here near the edge of our paper is in the front. We can do that by drawing things larger in the front and smaller in the back. So to draw the river in my landscape, I'm going to start with a little point where I want the river to end along this horizon line. You could also do this for drawing a road if you want a road in your landscape. And then I'm using a curved line that comes to the edge of my paper. Now when I draw the line next to it for the other side of the river, I'm going to make it very skinny near the horizon line because this will make it look like it's further back in my landscape. So notice how small that is. Then when I'm getting closer to the edge of my paper, my river is getting wider. And that is creating an illusion of space. So it looks like this is going back into the land. We can also do this with the placement of things in our landscape. So I'm using my Sharpie to make sort of a zigzaggy line here to give the illusion of space. Remember that you should be drawing this with a pencil first so that you know you like it before you outline it. And now I can work on drawing some trees. I have a little spot here where I got some pink watercolor on my landscape. Remember that we're keeping our landscape area black and white, so we don't want any color there. But what I could do is draw a tree over that spot and no one would really know that it was there. If you have any little spots where you got some color, think about how you can cover those up with a drawing. So when I'm drawing my trees, I'm going to make the ones in the foreground or at the front of my picture the biggest. I'm drawing some vertical lines here that will be my tree trunks. Notice how the ones in the front are the tallest, and as I'm getting further back, they become very small. So start in the front and then work your way back to the smaller trees. You could also think about this if you're drawing something like a cabin. When I'm drawing the trees, I'm gonna use some zigzaggy kind of textured lines to show the texture of the tree. And this tree goes kind of off of the page here, so it really does appear like it's in the front. I could also do this with my thinner Sharpie. That might work best for these smaller trees because we don't really want those thick lines there. Then we need to show texture on the mountains. And for all these little texture lines, I'm using the small Sharpie. I'm using short little lines on the mountain range to show the texture. If you don't add this, it will end up looking a little bit flat. We need to show what the mountains would feel like because they are made of rock or stone. They would definitely have a bumpy, textured surface. Once your landscape is drawn and outlined in Sharpie, the last thing to do is use a white gel pen to draw little dots for stars in the sky. You only want to use small little dots, not a big dot, because the stars really wouldn't be that large. They are far up in the sky. Remember that we are showing perspective here. We don't want to make it look unrealistic and draw an actual star shape. Just use small little dots. I hope you had fun working on your Aranyi landscape. I can't wait to see how yours turns out.